motion? That's a yes vote. And what happens if on the 26th that we turn down the motion? And I decided, true to form this morning, I was going to take things a little bit out of order, because 0.5 of the no, and you don't need to change the settings, Debbie. 0.5 of the no's was saying that we should realize that no matter what we vote, pro or con, that the weekends right now are going to change due to the pandemic. Our weekends are not going to feel the same, that there will be likely significant changes because of the virus stuff. For instance, Brazos don't seem like a good idea right now. So that's the thing that I'm going to take out of order, because that's true no matter what we want to vote on. So what happens if we have a yes vote, if we approve this amendment? And first and foremost, we stay a part of Tres Dias International, which most would say is a good thing. Point two, and this is really, really important, is that all sponsored candidates are still welcome to attend a weekend. These amendments do not affect anyone's ability to be a candidate. And point three starts very similar to point two, and that says that all individuals can attend sequelas and reunion groups. All individuals can attend. But here's where it starts to change, is that pescadores who are part of the prohibited categories will not be allowed to help run a sequela or to be the speaker. Now, point four is the big one. Point four says that to serve on a team, even as an auxiliary, to be on the board of directors, to serve in any office or in any committee or on any subcommittee, even in the lowest position, you would have to state that you agree with a statement of belief and you live up to the qualifications of leadership. Now, Tres Dias International actually prefers people sign a document attesting to that fact, and you'll have to if you're on the international level, but it's not required at the local level at this time. We don't have to sign a document at this point in time. So point five, pescadores, including clergy, who advocate for the rebellious activities would not be allowed to serve. And the number one example is if you're an advocate for the right of same-sex individuals to get married in the church, you are no longer allowed to serve in any position. The point six, and that's just saying we're not going to vote this in and then say, oh, we'll just look the other way. That's not an option. Some might say, well, we'll know. But God knows. So we have to be honest with ourselves. And point seven is the sad part. Unfortunately, it's likely that many in our community, if we adopt these amendments, many in our community will choose to no longer be a part of Tres Dias, and there will be churches in our area that will cease to be a part. Now, nobody knows how many, but obviously, if we ban a church's pastor from serving as a spiritual director, we've lost that church. So that's what a yes vote, some of the implications of a yes vote. So what about if we do a no vote, if we turn this down? And first and foremost, we should anticipate that Tres Dias International will revoke our charter, just like they say they would. Okay. Now, if we turn down the amendment, we will seek for this not to happen. We'll pray that the Holy Spirit will soften some of their hearts. Tres Dias International looks at this as a way of disciplining us and making us come to compliance or we're out of here. But maybe this is a chance to change the hearts of Tres Dias International and bring them back to the essentials. So point 2 of the no vote. If our charter is revoked, we won't use the term Tres Dias anymore. We can't use their copyrighted materials. Jumping right into 3, but we certainly can continue as an organization, just under a new name. So TDFC is Tres Dias of Fairfield County now. TDFC could be 3 Days for Christ. We'd be a different organization. And point 4 is a little bit of a surprise response to this, is that a new organization's got a little bit of freedom. We could choose to remain as a part of the Fourth Day movement with the weekend structure as it is and with sequelas and reunion groups, or we could choose to no longer be bound by that status quo. Maybe there are some things from the 1980s that need updating in the years 2020. Point 5, we already took. Point 6, if we stay within the Fourth Day structure, which is what I would honestly recommend, if we stay within that Fourth Day structure, the local manuals might only need a few words changed, but we'll no longer be able to use the Tres Dias International manuals, and those include the team manuals, and that includes those all will need to be rewritten, and that's going to be a lot of work. Point 7 is the sad thing to bring up, and that is that it's our experience, no matter what, actually, no matter which way we vote, but there'll be some pescadores who will choose to no longer be a part of this organization if we turn down this amendment. Unfortunately, by forcing the vote on us, Tres Dias International is going to cause us to lose people one way or the other, and on both sides. We'll lose conservative people, we'll lose liberal people. That's been our experience, and it's an unfortunate aspect of this issue. So that's the yes, and that's the no. And now you have the rest of the story.
Thanks, Gordon, for kind of laying out kind of where the options are. So in the emails we sent out over the last couple of weeks, we asked for a couple, anybody who wanted to submit questions, either for leadership of Fairfield County or leadership of International. And so we've got those on the next couple slides, and we're going to address those. And the first one was a pretty simple question, but basic. Why is this happening? And I think that hopefully of what you've heard to this point, you know why we are at this point. That we, this was passed 11 years ago. We, at that point, had a compromise position that was there, which is no longer tenable. So we have to have this vote for our community to become compliant. Are they kicking us out, or are we voting to leave Tres Dias? And I would say neither. Neither of those is the answer. Basically, what we're being asked to do is really, and I know Bo and the rest of the group, we are not being singled out here. This is a requirement of any community anywhere to be part of Tres Dias International. So we are voting to determine whether, given those structures, that's acceptable to this community and a way that we want to go forward with Tres Dias. So we're not being kicked out, and we're not voting to leave Tres Dias. We're voting whether we should go forward given what is being required of all communities within Tres Dias at this time. And I think the third question really is kind of, I think Gordon summarized all the options very well. If we vote no, does that mean we are no more? And I think, as you said, the likelihood is that we would have our charter revoked, and then we as a community would have to decide what that, prayerfully decide how we wanted to go forward from there. So those are the first three which really came to me, and then there were 4 or 5 more other questions, and most of those I think went to the international. So Bo, I'll turn it to you for number 4.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Couple of things. When this first passed in 2009 and was sent out in 2010, we realized that there would be some time before secretariats had a chance to look at it, discuss it, debate it, and actually make bylaw changes. Some of our communities have one opportunity a year to make bylaw changes unless they call for special elections or something along those lines. And what we did at that time with Fairfield County and with other communities is basically extended grace to give them time, to give them opportunity to work through it with their membership. And over that time, Fairfield County did make some headway towards implementing these items. As you mentioned earlier, you partially implemented the qualifications for leadership, and we're headed in that direction. It wasn't until recently, I would say in the last 2 or 3 years, that we were told flat out by the Fairfield County TDI representatives that in fact Fairfield County would never agree to these items. I was in that meeting when I was told that point blank. And at that time, I think the situation changed a little bit from one of, we'll give folks time, to one of, well, we're not going to do it. So, that's the way it is, that Fairfield County would never vote for that. So it kind of, put it in a different light. We've been working with several communities the last 2 or 3 years to get compliance with the qualifications. And I think, I was trying to remember, I think there may be 1 or 2 other U.S. communities that are still working through the process. And of course, we have several international communities that we're still working through the process. But to my knowledge, Fairfield County is the only group that we've been told, that TDI has been told, would not be adopting the qualifications in their bylaw. So, we haven't singled Fairfield County out, but on the other hand, we've been told that you would not be adhering to that. So it's sort of a, kind of put a different light on it, if you will, as far as, we were concerned. So that would be a little more of the history of how this has come about in answering the first 3 questions there.
Yeah. I'll Bo.
Yeah.
David, the only thing I would add to that is that some of the wording in your presentation that you just heard, for instance, the wording that says, by forcing us to a vote, Trace Diaz is doing this. Trace Diaz International is really just basically holding accountable all communities, including Fairfield County, with what has been passed, and it's not recent, it's not brand new. You guys know that this is since 2009. So I don't know if the right word take issue, but I think it's a little misrepresentation to say by forcing us to decide. This is not something that Secretariat did. This is something that was done and passed by the entire Trace Diaz community with more than 2/3 of a vote. So I don't know if singling out the Secretariat is a healthy thing to do there, because I believe it puts us at an automatic opposition. And, as far as I know I don't, and nobody that I know of on Secretariat is has anything against anyone or a particular community. So I just wanted to say that accountability is good and it's biblical.
Paul, did you have anything to add?
Let's see. Well, I think Gordon did an excellent job of outlining the points on what a yes and a no vote mean, and ways for the community to proceed. I would make a slight correction on one of the statements about what a yes vote means. It's only slight because it was still pretty close, but it was number 5 where it said pescadores, including clergy who advocate the activities would not be allowed to serve, such as advocating for civil rights of felons, addicts, and LGBT. Just advocating for those things would not exclude you. The one specific thing would be like, I think the policy committee had a ruling though that if you perform gay marriage, for example, then you couldn't serve. The fact that outside of Tres Dias you may advocate some of these things wouldn't exclude you, but if you and especially the felon about advocating for felons and addicts, that wouldn't exclude you either. And in fact, again, anyone that's a former felon, if they're not still stealing and things like that or whatever, I mean, they're welcome. And everybody's sinned in some ways, and if they're no longer sinning, they're certainly welcome. That's the only clarification, but otherwise I think he was pretty well spot on with everything they said.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
Julie can go ahead and unmute yourself, Julie.
Actually, it's for her husband that she is unmuting. I think I'm probably the person who was quoted as saying that Fairfield County would not adopt these changes. I don't believe that a casual statement made in the course of an informal conversation could in any way be taken as an expression of the entire community. And so I object to being referred to and quoted in that manner. Thank you.
And Bo, I don't believe that I, as a representative of Fairfield County, ever said that we would never vote for it. But I'd like to have clarification on that from whomever heard the words and understanding of exactly what was heard. Thank you.
Hi, I can speak to that. Julie, you and I were in an executive board meeting. You were standing in for the lady from Northern Virginia who was having back problems. You were sitting to my right. Denny was on our left, and you made that statement. Denny went around the room and was really calling all of us to account for it. And you actually made that statement and were pretty clear when you did. So I don't think I misunderstood it. And Don, I was not calling anyone out. I was just making a point that it had been brought up before the Secretariat that Fairfield County would not be complying.
Well, I have been quoted by.
I'm going to get us back on to answering the questions. So
Thank you.
I'd like
Debbie,
yeah,
could you, Debbie, would you, Debbie,
I'd just like to point out that what was said by someone at some point in the past isn't really relevant, because what we are here discussing is the fact that you are indeed going to vote on this.
We're voting in 2 weeks, and
we're not here to predict the result either. We're just here.
Yes.
Exactly.
And our objective.
This is an informational meeting.
This is an informational meeting.
And,
so
and the fact that this meeting exists shows that you are in fact going to vote on this issue.
Yep, we are.
We do, however, have a participant that would like clarification about number 4. So I'm going to put that back.
So Bo, I don't know if there's someone in the group that wants to kind of speak to.
What would be even for? Is that even now the
Even
president?
now, the president, yes, yes, sir.
Yeah, I don't have any comment about what the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary would be arguing. I really, I'm not. John, do you have any comments about that?
I don't. The only thing I would address, the only question I see in there says, how can they require you to adopt the wording completely true in our bylaws? The answer to that question is because that's what the Secretariat, that's actually not the Secretariat, but that's what the proxy vote by the Tres Dias community approved. And so that's what everyone has to adopt. That's the authority. So that's the answer to the question. You can be required that because that's what that bylaw requires according to the proxy vote.
Okay, Debbie, why don't you flip over to the next?
That's one. John, you're probably a better guy to go through the difference between inerrancy and infallibility. I think you could probably do a much better explanation of that than I have, even though I've looked at that before, and maybe talk about ecumenical also. That's in that question.
Okay. Yeah, I can do that. Let me read through this to make sure I address it properly. I know everybody's on time limit. Okay. Well, really, the words infallible and inerrancy are not really the same. When you speak of infallibility, the English translation will say basically without error, but when you apply that biblically, what it means is that the Bible can be trusted. The word inerrancy, from a theological standpoint, and those who hold to the statement that the Bible is without error or is inerrant, it's always that it's inerrant in its original language, because what you're going to have is you're always going to have issues in translation, just because there's no way that all the languages that we have properly translate over. That's why you have different translations of the Bible. Some of them are word for word. Some of them are more what was called dynamic, thought for thought. And then there's actually a mixture of those three. But when you go back to the original language, I think what's important to look at is that that word inerrancy basically means that there are no major contradictions in what the Bible teaches. It doesn't mean that there's not a name misspelled here or a comma there. And in fact, in mentioning that, there actually have been more than 24,000 copies of the New Testament from first century or really, really close to that. And other than grammatical things, spelling of names, a comma here or there, every single one of them is almost exact. So the thought process that somehow down the road, people change things or, that was done, that's just it's not valid. Now you do have things where translators would say, and they're all documented, well, this didn't appear in the original, so to complete this thought, we put this word in or this phrase in and things like that. So I guess it's just depending on how you look at that. I guess, Bo, really what it boils down to, and I believe this, if I understood the gentleman that presented, not David, the other one, I forget his name, when he was presenting the position. Gordon, yes, thank you very much. He said that in the document, they adopted the phrase, and correct me if I'm wrong, Gordon, I think you said inspired and true instead of complete or, however it was worded. I don't have it right here in front of me. So, but the word inspiration literally means God breathed. The translation of that word is two Greek words. When you put those together, it means God breathed. And what that includes is not only God breathed, but breathed in by those that were penning the word. So if you take out inspiration, then you remove the Bible of any moral or biblical or theological authority. So the essence of that God breathed is that God exhaled his breath as those who were penning by the leading of the Holy Spirit inhaled and penned. There's not many authors of the Bible. There's really one author of the Bible. And what the Bible states itself is that men, as inspired by God, just wrote down as he led them. So really, that's the difference and the main points of infallibility and inerrancy. As far as ecumenical goes, I believe there's a big misunderstanding of ecumenical. I think a lot of times people think ecumenical means that we accept or it is accepted. I say we because we are doing saying that, but the thought process is that it means all churches and whatever they believe. But that's not really what ecumenical means. What ecumenical means is that it is a representative of all churches and the things they have in common. And that's really where Tres Dias focuses.
Did that
Okay,
answer
thanks.
it, Dave?
Yeah, that, and then move on to 6.
Actually, Gordon has his hand raised, David.
Right, just to clarify, we had not, well, the question wasn't about inspiration. The only thing we're adding is the word completely true. We say inspired and true.
That's what I said. Yes, sir.
No, you were talking about inspiration. We don't care that. We're fine with that. Everybody believes that the Bible's inspired by God. But the completely true is something that there are denominations that have a problem with. And
Well,
that's what we think. We're not focusing on what we have in common, as you say, and respecting our differences.
right. Well, I don't want to get into a debate because that's not the purpose of
I'm
here.
just
But I will say-
clarifying because you quoted me.
No, yes, sir. What I will say for you guys' further discussion, what would be important to decide is that if something can be inspired by God and not be completely true.
Good point.
Good, thank you. On 6, then we talked a little bit about the legal protection as being one of the rationales for putting this in to begin with, and that is that still the main rationale?
Yeah, I'll speak to that. That was probably part of it, and we've checked back with our legal team about that. But as I recall going through the discussion of these qualifications, I remember in 2006, one of our communities from down in the Mobile area had included some qualifications for leadership in their bylaws. And it got us as a secretariat really started to look more at this. And the more we looked at it, we found that, different communities had different qualifications. Some of them more, well, anyway, let's just say they were different. Okay, we're all different. And we started looking at, is that really a good thing for each community to have their own set of qualifications for leadership? Or would it be better for us to approach it from a standpoint that Tres Dias International already had in their bylaws, qualifications for leadership? So that really kind of, I think, because it was entered into the secretariat minutes and there was some focus put on it, I think that really got people thinking about that more. And as those of y'all that have been around Tres Dias for a while, it takes us a while to kind of hash things out and chew on them. And we're all volunteers and got day jobs, so it just takes time for these things to kind of boil up to the surface. And there was some talk of legal protection. I think the Boy Scouts were mentioned earlier. My recollection on the Boy Scout issue was more about referencing the King James Version of the Bible, and the rationale for that was that, you know, when you say Bible, what does that mean? Geez, there's hundreds of different Bibles out there. I mean, the thought was, well, we need to, you know, our statements and all need to reference a unified, you know, document, and we chose the Holy Bible scriptures, I think from, was it 1611 or whatever date that was. So yeah, there was probably some legal side to it, but really I think it was more of a unity discussion, more of an equity discussion, consistency, that sort of thing. Was more the basis for me in the 3 or 4 years that it was debated leading up to 2009. Does that help?
Yeah, that helps.
Okay.
Okay, so I'd say 7 is more of a comment of frustration. I'm not going to look for a response to that one. And then the last one, I think, kind of comes down to, you know, there are a lot of denominations that are in our community, and I'm sure in others, that that they're where they are is not where the qualifications for leadership or the statement of belief are. And so I think that's addressing is the position that's being taken truly broad in terms of its ecumenical basis. And that's
is the question asking about how the makeup of the Secretariat and how, you know, the Secretariat is made up of members of all communities that are nominated by their community to be a Secretariat member. And the way that works is, as we go through, the nominations are received, your community fills out a form about who you're nominating and why, and their qualifications and all like that. Once they're qualified, they can be put on the ballot. But then as the vote, and then they're voted on by the entire community, the entire assembly of all Tres Dias communities. When the vote comes in, it's not necessarily the candidate with the highest amount of votes that becomes a Secretariat member. What we first look at is to see what communities are already represented on the Secretariat, and then we try to fill the open slots with those candidates receiving the most votes from communities that are not already represented on the Secretariat. So I think we're trying to get as broad and diverse a group of people, you know, on the Secretariat as practical. And does that make sense, as I've described?
Oh, yeah.
Julie, Don, is that accurate? Yeah, okay. And then let's see.
Can I come in?
Yes.
Can I come in? Bo, it's so good to see you again. I've enjoyed, first of all, I've enjoyed working with you through the years. I really have.
Oh,
And
absolutely. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun.
That's so good to see your faces.
Yeah.
Okay. I love you, brother. I really do. And I'm so happy you and your family recovered somewhat from the virus.
We're doing good.
But this question was intended to put you on the spot. And I wanted you to have it beforehand so you could think about it. It reads, has the Secretariat made any concerted effort to balance representation? Now, you answered how you go about it, but the answer is no, because of the way we elect members to the Secretariat. You're really not able to make an active effort to get a balance of denominations.
Well, let me say this.
Well, that doesn't mean you cannot make an effort by appointing a board of advisors, but especially a clergy advisory committee. Know that you have a balance of church denominations represented there, as witnessed by the fact that you have one particular policy on the gay marriage without a single discussion or negative vote, which seems to me to tell me that you have really not really made that effort to balance a community of views. Thank you.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
I think I think John can at least discuss a little bit about the clergy advisory board that's attached to the policy committee, because it isn't just John himself, but it is in fact a board with several clergy members. John, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. Well, you know, as far as I know, any clergy that is representative of any community can become part of the clergy advisory board. All they have to do is be submitted or submit themselves, or be nominated, I guess would be a better word, by a community, or them themselves say, hey, I'd like to be a part. And then the simple process is just a vetting with well, now myself. Before then, it was the committee and the chairman. And really, it's just a matter of are you in good standing? And it's asking the same things we ask of every other, community member. So
and
it's
you do have a representation of several different.
Yeah, it's made up from many different, I would say, not only denominations, but theological viewpoints. We have some members that are clergy, but not necessarily pastors. Some are associates, some are lay clergy in a sense. They're clergy, but their church doesn't necessarily have a head pastor. They're more of a I forget what the presbyter type. We have one that is a counselor and a clergyman at the same time, and so we get very varied perspectives from that board.
Anything else for us?
I think we're good on the questions. I think we're already going to run a little over, but I want to try to keep us on time. So Debbie, I think what we're now going to do is, we've heard a lot, and Debbie's going to break us into the Fairfield County folks into